Steve, I want to begin by asking you, because I remember speaking at the time of Hunger, and you were, very determined not to sort of rush into your next project, and you were really weighing your options and sort of waiting for the right thing to come along. So talk a little bit about how Shane came about and why that felt to you like it was the right thing to do next.
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that I'm just sort of very pleased to be here in New York for this film, because the film is based in New York. So, the movie's coming home, really, similar to the debut of Hunger in the Belfast World Live, and I feel that this is, after Telluride in Toronto and Venice, yes, but this is the real sort of place where I actually wanted to show the film. Okay, well, the beginning of Shane was just, it started with a conversation with myself and Abby Morgan. We had arranged to meet. I didn't remember Abby at all. And we arranged to meet in a cafe. We only had an hour, both of us sort of grabbing time. It ended up to be a three-hour-and-a-half conversation. We were still talking. And through that conversation about talking about the internet, talking about, sort of pornography on the internet and stuff and such like, then this sort of film idea started to snowball from there. I mean, after Hunger, I had no real desire actually to make another film because it was such an exhausting experience. I think myself and Michael, I don't know, I know you were extraordinarily exhausted, but after that I just got sort of the fatigue of all this research and stuff was affecting me as such, and I thought, I had no desire to sort of go through that thing again. But obviously, with this meeting with Abby, that's when it started happening again, this sort of desire to sort of, the whole idea of feature film, the whole idea of storytelling.
And and you mentioned the internet and some other things, but what specifically about the idea of addiction appealed to you, if you see it as a film about addiction? Well, it was just the whole idea of, I mean, you think of films like The Lost Weekend, you think of films like sort of, A Man with a Golden Arm, and you have this thing about, what attracted me about this particular addiction was to do with, in order to facilitate this addiction, you needed another person. You needed someone to facilitate that addiction. So therefore, there you have drama, in a nutshell, really. And that, it hadn't been sort of looked at properly in a way. That was obviously another attraction. But also, what happened was this. We started off in London. I didn't want to come to New York to make a film. That was never my desire. The desire was to make a film about this particular subject matter. And we started in London. But guess what? No one wanted to talk to us. No one wanted to have that conversation with us. So it was very difficult. And all of a sudden, we started hitting walls. So we went, I asked to speak to some kind of specialist in the field. That specialist, the two specialists we spoke to who happened to be in New York, and we flew over and spoke to them, and then that's how we got access to people who had the affliction and dealing with the affliction of sex addiction. And from there, it just snowballed again. Okay, well, New York, okay, let's go here, let's make the film here then. With people willing to speak, with obviously the encouragement of these two sort of experts in the field. And it was just amazing, these discoveries. And it was almost like freaks, one of us. It didn't feel alien at all. It didn't feel sort of bizarre or absurd. It felt very extraordinarily human. It's just another high. And Michael, can you talk about? Well, first of all, were you eager to work with Steve again after the collaboration on Hunger? And we know. If I can ask this in a way that doesn't sound like it's a joke line, for Hunger, you obviously did an incredible physical transformation to prepare for the role and actually starved yourself, much like Bobby Sands. What did you do as an actor to prepare to play this role?
Really? I just went out and had a lot of sex and just tried to sort of embrace it as best I could. Working with Steve, was something, that I said to Steve, at the end of Hunger, obviously, he changed my life, literally. I mean, definitely in terms of a professional point of view, you know. I was getting to a point, you know, where I was 30 years old. The recession was just around the corner, which meant literally, you know, the same as every other industry, less jobs for less actors, and for somebody to take a chance on, you know, an unknown actor, you know, to give them the opportunity to, and take a risk to play a lead in the film, you know, that there was less and less of that happening. So, you know, we other than a sort of, I think, a big argument the first day of Hunger, we I remember it well. I think, you know, we just sort of, I don't know, it was there's that thing that you always, I remember when I was 17 and I started off doing this, and, you know, my dream was to meet a director and have a relationship with a director that, you know, the things that I sort of looked at were Scorsese, De Niro, Lumet, Pacino, and, you know, that would be the ultimate, you know, to sort of have a sort of collaboration like that, and to be on a wavelength that powerful with somebody. And, you know, that's sort of what I was so lucky to sort of find in Steve with Hunger. So again, you know, I think you mentioned it to me in 2008 that this was sort of, you know, you had this idea, and I was like, fine, just tell me when and where, and, you know, I didn't even need to see a script, so it was that simple, really. And preparation, I did a lot of sort of just reading. I spent a lot of time with the script, pretty much the same with my preparation for most other jobs. I spent a lot of time with the script, and through rereading the script, lots of sort of things just, I don't know, it's sort of the character and the story starts to unravel itself. It starts to sort of, I don't know, set into my enamel. And then, you know, meeting people helps, of course. I always find it difficult when you meet people, the same situation I found when we were doing Hunger. Asking people direct questions didn't really work that well for me in both scenarios, but I always try and get people to tell me stories. I like stories, I like to tell them, and I like to hear them. And when people tell stories, they sometimes let their guard down, and through that you can sort of get little like footnotes almost, little sort of motivations. You can see where sort of the essence of a personality is, and that was very helpful in terms of getting into that headspace, you know, the character who can't really deal with intimacy, somebody who doesn't really like themselves, well, doesn't like themselves at all really, and so sets about sort of abusing themselves. So that's pretty much, I think, the answer to your question.
Can you also talk a little bit about building your relationship with Carey Mulligan in the film? I think one of the things that's very impressive in the film is you sense a real shared history between those two characters, even though not a lot of information is actually spoken about, you know, what happened to them, where they come from. Did you, sort of as actors, build your own character histories and figure out the backstory of these characters together, or did Steve provide a lot of that? How was that worked out?
Well, you know, again, that was like a really clever decision, and both Steve and Abby's, to sort of make them, you know, to have siblings. Mm-hmm. There's a real honesty between sort of siblings, I think, and a real cruelty as well. You know, although there's a very strong sort of bond, but also there's an awareness of all the weak points and how to hit them and how to really strike home.
Just would add, it was interesting because myself, Carey, and Michael both have siblings of the opposite sex, so that was an interesting starting point as well. Absolutely,
yeah. Please don't interrupt me again. So we sat down, of course. You know, we sat down, the three of us, and we discussed about, you know, where these people are coming from. You know, of course, where they are in their lives when we sort of meet them in the film. What's happened before. A biography for me is always an important thing to do anyway. You know, to sort of just get an idea and have a confidence of the character. And yes, we discussed a lot of that, and sort of how far we wanted to go with it, and we did a little bit of workshopping with some scenes, and then I also didn't want to sort of spend too much time with Carey as well, because I wanted to keep